In 1975 to 1978, Canada became a place of refuge for the Vietnamese who were escaping the tyranny that existed at that time. And I'm here today to not so much celebrate that, I guess, except there is obviously some celebration in the fact that the Vietnamese community that came to Canada was able to resettle and start a new life, but also to remember, because I think part of the issue is in today's, I don't know, busy climate of business and everything that happens, I think we forget sometimes these major events that took place where Canada and the United States and many countries in the Western world became safe places and became havens and refuge. You know, my ancestors came here from Argentina, from the British Isles, also from Ukraine and from Romania. And I heard stories from my grandparents about how difficult that was growing up on the prairies and how there was often, um, racism and comments about immigration. But Canada and in many ways the United States and Western countries are places of refuge and places that are safe. And that's something that we can celebrate. And I think that we need to celebrate more. Obviously, there's many festivals and different things that take place, but we need to celebrate this, I think, every day. I'm standing here, like I said, at this memorial to the Vietnamese boat people. I remember that very clearly as a kid, seeing those pictures on TV and hearing the stories of people that were escaping and coming to Canada. I was in elementary school at that time, and I remember it very well. As we go up the road here, this is called International Avenue here in Calgary. It has some of the finest restaurants in the city. And it's a wonderful place where you can go and eat and buy different things at different markets. And so we kind of see that as a cool thing. You can take a bus and go on a tour if you want. And that's all well and good. And that's excellent. But the problem is, how are we integrating that into our daily lives as community? How are we integrating this into our daily lives in, well, there it is. There's downtown. There's the office buildings. And this is Calgary, but this is really any city in the Western sort of developed world, like we like to call it. Interesting, I've traveled to many different places around the world, and I often see in developing countries that in many ways they're further ahead than we are because they've had to make do with far less. They've had to figure their way out in the world without all the money and the resources that we have here in Canada and in North America and other places. So I really want to talk today about diversity. I want to talk about immigration as being a key factor in developing our economy. I don't think that we think about that so much. Like I say, International Avenue, it's really cool. You can go get any kind of food you want from all over the world. That's all great. But what are we doing to integrate these communities into our day-to-day operations? Of course, there's many people from around the world that work for different companies. We know that. But often we've made it so difficult for them to be able to come here, and yet we're constantly saying how short we are of workers. We're constantly saying how we can't supply the workforce right now. We need to get other workers in, and yet we make it incredibly difficult for people to come here. That doesn't make any sense. In fact, it's quite illogical. And so what I think we need to look at as businesses and operational structure is integrating people from other places into our society in such a way that it's not an us against them. It's nice to have the festival and to celebrate that, but we almost need to be at the point where we don't necessarily need to have these things to draw attention to them, but more to just celebrate the fact that we're all in a community. And I think at the very heart of ESG, and as you're watching these videos and taking this course, you know that ESG, environmental, social, and governance, at the very heart of that, and you'll hear me say this many times throughout our course, is community. And when you're living in community, it doesn't matter where you came from. What matters is where you are now. And what are you doing to be able to provide opportunities for your family in that community, to be able to give back and to contribute to that community. And what we find is so many people from other places are incredible contributors to the community, but it may not be in the big, huge ways. Yeah, they might not be the ones writing the huge check to the children's hospital or whatever, but in small ways, every single day, they give back to the community and make Calgary, make any city in North America, or like I say in the Western world, Europe, they make it a better place. Now look, we all hear reports and hear things about, bad things that happen sometimes in regards to immigration. That's true, yes, but that's true everywhere. That's true all over the city here. It's true of any city. That often we lump this people coming from other places into the concept that somehow that's going to detract from our community instead of help to add to it. And I think that that's just false. I think it's a false narrative, and it's been created by people that basically don't want to see their life change, right? They want to see everything stay the same. And there's this concept that if somebody comes in from outside, that somehow they're going to change it. No. What happens often when we allow for positive and strategic immigration into our country is that we see that they don't change it, they make it better. And they challenge us. See, there's a difference between being challenged and being changed. And I think that that's very important. We need to be challenged to think in terms of where we are now, not necessarily where we were. We're already changing things, and we're going to draw attention to that in a different video downtown. We see many of the buildings are being renamed and things. Well, that's because we have to rethink the way that we operate in today's 21st century environment, whether that again is our community or our companies, our businesses. And so I think that it's really important to look at this fact that our population is not increasing rapidly because of, more kids being born. It's not. That's a fact. In the Western world, our population is beginning to shrink. And so if we can't meet the jobs of today, and our population is shrinking, where are the people going to come from to help provide the services and the employment that we need to run the city, that we need to run our society? Where's that going to come from? Well, in many ways, the only way that we can think positively about this is by incorporating strategic immigration into our country and into our city. And so we need to be looking for those who can come in from other places that know how to do the work, that know how to provide the services, and that we give them an opportunity to grow and thrive here in Canada, in Calgary, in whatever city, Buffalo, New York, for whatever. There's cities all over North America that need to bring in opportunities to allow families and individuals to thrive in a place where they can bring their skills and their expertise, because it's only going to help. It's only going to help, and it's going to challenge us to grow our community in different ways. And I think that that's really a critical component of what needs to happen. So when we boil this down, we see that immigration is a very positive thing. It brings in people that are skilled. It brings in opportunities for us to be able to expand our knowledge too, and to integrate their expertise and knowledge into our operations. And what does it do? Well, it increases our population base as well, which allows us to be able to meet the demand that's there in the workforce. But also, and what's so important, is that it begins to build community in a way that allows us to be able to really grow and thrive. So I think that that's a critical component. Now, where does that leave us? We have the immigration. We like to talk about integration, which is very important, and it's absolutely critical that we begin to integrate these people that are coming from other places into our community. It's, again, not an us against them. It's not a them thing. They become part of the fabric of our community, and they make it stronger, they make it better. And again, like I say, they challenge us to grow that community in different ways than maybe we've thought of before. And I think that that's very critical. But where does this really hit us in terms of the tangible? Well, that's where the governance comes in. And that is a really critical component of the fact that when we look at what we need to do and what we are doing, often these are two different things. And we know that the issues exist in terms of bringing people to the workforce that allow us to be able to meet the demands of the workforce that is there, hasn't changed, it's gotten worse. We need to have more people in. One of the things that we can draw attention to, and I'm actually very pleased to see that this has occurred, is that the Alberta government here in Alberta has made a opportunity with the government in the Philippines to be able to bring in nurses who are qualified. They may not have the same certificate that a nurse here that studied at Mount Royal or studied at U of C is going to have, but they're still very qualified. They know what to do. They can fill that gap immediately with qualified, skilled people that allow us to be able to meet the demands of the healthcare system, which just are getting bigger and bigger, especially in light of what's just happened with COVID and with the pandemic. And so what we see now is a very creative way to ensure that we're bringing people in that are fully qualified. The piece of paper that's hanging on their wall in Manila may be different than the piece of paper that's hanging on a nurse's wall here in Calgary. But the fact is that the training, the development, the skills, the expertise are the same. So let's bring them in, and then let's work on getting the qualifications if there are some that need to happen. And you know what? There's so many towers downtown, just over there, that are full of offices that can't be filled. And we keep running into this cycle of boom and bust, which, unfortunately we've become very familiar with here in Calgary and in Alberta. But the fact of the matter remains is that we need skilled people. We need individuals that have the ability to do the work. And they're there. They're out there. They are maybe in Mexico City. I've traveled there extensively and know that the engineering people that I have met down in Mexico City are more than qualified, fully qualified to be able to come here and help and fill some of those positions. You look over in Asia, there's many, many engineers that could be here in these office buildings fulfilling these jobs. Now, a lot of them are also trades. And, what can you do with that? Well, the same thing. There are innumerable amounts of tradespeople in other countries that are fully qualified, fully skilled. They're a good plumber. They know how to do plumbing, right? In Africa, they've done it for years. They're certified. But we say, well, they don't have this piece of paper, or they don't have this card, or they don't have this marking on their exam at the end. Well, are we going to keep saying that and keep struggling to meet the demand that's there for employment and for integration into our community? Or are we going to bring these people in from other places and allow them to grow and thrive and be in an atmosphere that allows them to be all that they can be, meanwhile fulfilling the needs that we have? Remember, it's kind of amusing, really, when you think about immigration. It's this concept that, we're allowing people to go. We're the ones with the problem. And that's the part that I think we forget a lot of the time. The people that are immigrating from Asia, they don't know anything about the fact that we have issues meeting demand in our companies. It's not their issue. It's not their problem. They want to be part of the solution, and yet what do? We often put roadblocks up in place of providing solutions, which would be to bring them in and, like I say, allow them to grow, to thrive, to prosper, and be part of our community. You know what? I didn't know what pho soup was when I was a young boy, 8, 9 years old, when the Vietnamese boat people were coming over here to Canada. I didn't know what pho was. I didn't know what spring rolls were. I didn't know what any of these delicious things that I love to eat now. Obviously, I got to be careful. I didn't know that any of that existed, but I know it exists now because these incredible people came from an unfathomable horror, came to Canada and have integrated and become part of our community. And now we have these amazing pho stores. Everybody loves to have a bowl of pho. And yet, did we really stop and think about how we arrived at that point? Well, we arrived at that point because at one point in time, our shores, our borders, our doors were open. Our arms were held wide open to allowing people to come in and become part of the community. And I think from that perspective, if we think about that, that becomes a critical part in us growing a better place to live for all of us. Now, one of the big things, like I mentioned on this, is the G part of ESG. I didn't talk a lot about the environment today, but it's not necessarily integrated into that. But for sure, we've talked about the social aspects and I've talked about governance. Well, here's the deal. We have office towers downtown full of lawyers, okay? And you know lawyers, you can't live with them and you can't live without them, right? But the deal on that is that as corporate leaders, as companies, as different organizations here in the city, and like I say, I'm here in Calgary, so I'm speaking to here, but this could be any city. I'm not exclusively talking about just about Calgary. Anywhere in North America, what we need to be doing is taking a look at all of our contracts. We need to be taking a look at all of our documentation for our governance of our companies and seeing, are we making it seamless for somebody to come here from Mexico, or for somebody to come here from Singapore, or for somebody to come here from Colombia? Are we making that process seamless for them? Are we allowing them the opportunity to be able to come here and thrive and grow, make the living wage? Maybe they do have to take some English courses. Okay, that's fine. That's part of their workday. But if they have the engineering skills or the geology skills, or they have the teaching skills, or they have the nursing skills, why are we not integrating that into our community? Why are we not taking a look at our different structures, our corporate structures, and like I say, our agreements and different documentation to ensure that what we're doing as companies is making that as simple and as seamless as possible. We are not the ones putting up the roadblocks. Now, corporations and organizations need that. Like I said, we're the ones with the employment problem, not the people coming here. But it's going to involve also government. Now that's an issue, and can be. Obviously, I'm well aware of that. But when it comes to the G part, when it comes to the governance side, if we as corporations and organizations are willing to adapt, we're willing to integrate, then we need to be standing up and making sure that we are challenging government to think the same way. Doesn't matter what political party you're from. What matters is the fact that if we all agree and we come to the point where we know that our population, like I said, is not increasing, it's decreasing. We need to fill these employment opportunities with people that are skilled and have expertise. We're doing that. So let's work together to make our society, our community, a place where people feel welcome. They feel like they can integrate and be part of it. And going to work in the office does not become a huge scary thing, does not become a big onerous problem for the people that we need, quite frankly. That's the thing. We need them as much, if not more, than they need us. They're leaving a place of their family history. They're leaving a place that they've known all of their lives. And they're coming here to take the risk. We need them to be part of our community. We need to be more diverse in how we think about our communities. We need to understand that a great place such as this, yes, International Avenue, and different countries and nationalities and ethnic foods and everything that are represented. This isn't just a novelty, okay? And that's what I think sometimes it becomes. It's just a novelty. It's not a novelty. It becomes a way of life because, again, like I say, it's not us against them. We are integrated together as a community, and we're stronger as a community, not just in our businesses, but in the whole aspects of what it truly means to live in community with other people. We're stronger in that because of people coming from somewhere else, bringing their culture, bringing their language. You know what? I lived in the States for several years, and it's interesting because often, not all the time, but often it would seem like people that were coming from somewhere else would almost feel embarrassed, or they would be nervous about speaking their own language. And so often they would, try and make sure that they spoke English. What really makes me excited about being here and also about traveling is often I hear people of all different languages. Here in Calgary, on any given day, you can hear Chinese, you can hear Filipino, you can hear Spanish spoken, all these different languages, and nobody seems to be too concerned about the fact that, I better speak English. And so we have to, again, be able to provide a community where people feel, obviously, very comfortable in being able to communicate with each other in their language, but also, obviously, they have to have English skills. That goes without saying. And so we need to make sure that we're providing them that opportunity. But taking some English courses should not be getting in the way of them being able to provide the service that's so desperately needed for us. They have enough English. That's fine. We can work with that. That's easy to do. So we've had an opportunity now to discuss what I feel is a very critical path for us to look at in the future. If we are going to be able to continue to survive, we're going to be able to have the same economic opportunities and freedoms that we have. We are going to have to integrate people. And we are going to have to be even more diverse and to celebrate diversity, but also to make diversity part of our daily operations. We have to be able to do that, or we are not going to be able to be supplying the opportunities that are out there with qualified people. And that's what we don't want. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that happen or allow that even to happen in our companies and our organizations where we become handcuffed because we don't have the people. And yet we do. We're just not taking advantage of it. We're putting up roadblocks and making it difficult for them to integrate. So that's our discussion for today. We've talked about immigration as being a critical component of ESG, a critical component of us growing our operations and our companies and our organizations. We've talked about diversity, which is key, very critical in the fact that we begin to celebrate the diversity that other communities can bring, and also their knowledge base. They may have thought about something differently than we have. Maybe engineering, but maybe they have ideas and thoughts about engineering that they can bring to us, just like we can impart some more knowledge to them. We've talked about ensuring that we don't put the roadblocks up for people who are fully qualified and able to do the jobs that we need them to do. They're not coming here because they have to do it. We're bringing them in because it's important for us to continue on with our structure that we have. And we've talked about the governance side and ensuring that we're taking a look at our documentation. We're taking a look at our corporate structure. We're taking a look at how our offices function and ensuring that people that can come from other places bring their diversity, bring their expertise, and provide opportunities for us to be able to thrive economically as we are providing them an opportunity to thrive economically as well. We can't fulfill the jobs, folks. We can't fill those positions and we continue to struggle operationally. It's not a recipe for economic success. It's a recipe for economic disaster. And so that's really why today is such an important video. We have an opportunity to grow great communities. Committed to that. And I trust that as you go through this video series with us, you're going to want to see that commitment in your own life as well and in our community. Thanks. We'll see you in the next video.